Hi guys, Tuva here. Can you believe it? We are on the last rune, Dagaz. Now, some scholars would say and argue that Dagaz is not the last one, but in fact Athala is. I beg to differ because to my mind, Dagaz has an end of a big journey but the beginning of a new one. So in my eyes, I see that because when you have Athala, you find it's about bringing everything into conclusion, everything family, life, situations. So when Dagaz comes along, it is like the end of a journey but the beginning of a new one. We never finish, we never begin, we just are. And if we can get that concept almost like the infinity sign, which Dagaz looks very much like, and if I show it to you, you will see what I mean. It looks very much like, if you was to round off the edges, the infinity sign. So in fact it is very similar. So we have two drinking horns. Now you might ask why. One is to hail not and one is to hail soul. They are bringing in both aspects. We have Freya and we have Odin. Odin, the breath of life. But in the middle is Balder. Now there's a reason for Balder. A lot of people say about Heimdall. The story of Balder is very interesting and it brings Dagaz out very well. By him is the light. And the incense is sage, which is cleansing, it's purifying, it's getting rid of stuff that you don't want present. So as I say, a very basic altar. The blackness of the wood being the dark, because in the older times it was renowned that darkness was part of Dagaz, because Dagaz began at midnight, not at dawn. So we had 24 hours from midnight right round to midnight. For those that lived in the Nordic places, the darkness consumed a lot of their time, whereas in the summer the light was there for the whole time. So you can see why it would have been known as Dagaz, the rune of the night sun. We have a lot of different aspects to this that different people have added over the years, and I think sometimes we look into these runes in too much depth. I like to go by how it makes me feel. The name Dagaz is basically daytime or day. It's enlightenment, warmth, joy. It encompasses everything that you can think of in that lightness of life. When you see a beautiful sunny day, doesn't it make you feel great to be alive? But again, when we go to the depths of night, that's when our fears and our anguishes and our problems come to light also. And we can understand that in that tiny speck of light that starts to come just before dawn is a time when we feel most at rest, because we have stopped our worrying, we have stopped our anguish, and we can see a new day dawning. That pinprick of light can make you feel so much better, and that is why I love the rune Dagaz, that we misrepresent night time. And so to get a good ideal of what the day is, we need to have the night. So when Not brings in that night time, it's a time for solace, it's a time to recuperate, time for dreaming, and that is where the god Balder comes in. I don't know if you guys know the story of Balder, you probably do. He was beautiful, he was the beloved of all the gods. He was the one that shone the light of the sun. He shone inside and out. He was beauty incarnate. His very steps brought the joy of warmth and love and light and enlightenment, the light solar god. He was actually the child of the sun that gave life. So he personified that by his radiance, and everybody loved Balder. The trouble was, he also had these gifts, and that came in the still hours of night. He got prophetic dreams, dreams that would come true. And this was fine until he started to get these terrible dreams of his impending doom, his death, which he did not expect to get. He was much troubled by this, for he knew what he received in this way would in fact come true. So he knew he was looking at his own demise. Loki the Trickster, the one that was personification of darkness and light, had the ability to change what he wanted, and his attitude was demise of that brilliant god, to send him to death so that Ragnarok could happen. Loki is misrepresented in many ways, but the one thing he did do, and it had to happen, for the cycles go on and on and on. We cannot change what will be, but we live what will be, if that makes sense to you. The ideal behind this was to finish Balder off using his brother. He was blind and didn't really have much understanding of how Balder was, so light and full of opportunity. Through Loki's meddling, Balder died and was protected and looked after and nurtured. You might say, well, that was the end of everything. Not with Dagaz. For while Balder was sleeping and safe, Ragnarok would take place. Now, guys, we always think Ragnarok is the end. That is it. That is not true. For Dagaz promises us a new dawn, a new day, and a new cycle. And that is what happens after Ragnarok. Balder is then brought back and lives again in the new worlds. But can you see, sometimes the bad has to happen for the good to come through. And so things are dealt with in that darkness. Loki was dealt with. Sadly, Odin. Sadly, a lot of the gods were dealt with in that darkness. But we have seen that through the cycles, we never really ever die. We come back again. Enlightenment, mainly personification of both dark and light. Dagaz is such a large rune for the last one in the third act, but it's also one that can finish a cycle before starting a new one. So we never really finish or stop. We just have a break, have a rest, and it's the same when we die and a newness comes into being, and that is the wonder of Dagaz. Now we go into the Correspondences. It is the element of fire and air. The animal is the hawk, and you can see why. For the hawk looks ahead as well as behind, and it flies through the situations of its being. The object of power, a gateway, And you can also understand that, guys, because a gateway is like the door, and you hear of that in the saying, the door that opens opportunities. Open that door to the future. And again, it has quite a strong meaning. One door shuts, another one opens is another one. So there is a big thing about doors and openings. They are portals. The colour that you can use on your altar is blue and red, any kind of blue or red. The plants, rowan, spruce and hemp. The aroma could be clary sage and linden blossom. The body part would be your crown chakra, the energy field, because that's where the light comes in and where it drains through, so you have that infinity with solar energies. The stone I love to use for this is the emerald, the beautiful colour of emerald. Chrysolite and fluorite also. The gods and the goddesses for this is Dag, day, and Not, night. They are constantly going round in circles. They bring through the moon, they bring through the sun, and they're always chasing each other. And so they would be presented really strongly in this rune. But as I say, a lot of people use Hendal in this, but I do like to use Boulder because the story of Boulder really represents Dagaz. Now is the time for the very last pathworking meditation, and it's rather sad in a way, but what we got to remember is that where there's an end there's a beginning, so it's not the end. It's just the beginning of a new phase of another series of something else. So if you'd like to take your seats, guys, get yourselves comfortable, and when you're ready, take a deep breath in through the nose, holding it and letting it out through the mouth. As the drum beats the heartbeat of Mother Earth, we close our eyes and get ourselves into a comfortable position where we can just wander off into our other self. As you relax to the drum beat, you feel at peace. Opening your inner eye, you find yourself in that time before time, the darkness. You're not feared, for you've been here before, and as the drum quickens, you see that pinprick of light to the left and one to the right. It is now time to call upon Dagaz. Full of illumination, flying towards you in a gust of air. You can feel the warmth of the sign as it becomes clearer, as Dagaz, the rune of light, of day, of enlightenment, comes towards you. You feel yourself being lifted into the clutches of the draft of air around it. And you know that you will enter through this portal into the world of Dagaz, you find yourself with other people, those that you don't really know. You are in a village, and it is back in the old days, where time seems to have stood still. The drum is beat in the middle of the village, which calls and beckons everybody. You find yourself being taken with the others to the centre of the village. There is a storm coming, and this storm is going to cause a lot of problems. The village down the road has been completely annihilated, and there was no way out for these poor people. What can we do? Say the people around you, in panic. The chief of the village says, calm down. We know that it will be strong winds, lots of rain. We know that it will probably destroy our homes, but we can use caves that are around us. We can use what's in the mountains, which is a walk away from the village. We can get there before nightfall, before the storm comes. Another person speaks up and says, what about our food? We were storing it up for the rest of the year. How will we survive? That's right, we get water from the river. We stock up on that, and some of the women can hold that, and we will go on the journey, but we have to be quick now. Food-wise, we take what we can. It is just for the night. You make your way towards the mountain ahead, but you know you have to go through the dreaded forest. The forest where there are creatures that would eat you or just kill you. The men would take horns with them, because when they blew the horns, it would freak the animals out and they would run. It was going to be a long journey, and the children would get tired and cry, and they would be hungry. You start the journey well, all in good spirits, all happy to be helping each other, until you start to see the sun going down, and you realise the night is on its way. To conserve the torches, you do not light them for a while. And as you walk over the sticks and the stones and the clumps of mud, you find your feet are starting to really hurt. People are starting to get tired, but the chief blows the horn and says, some of you want to stop, but if we stop, we will get killed in the storm. We have to keep going. This is where the sad part comes in, guys. For those that were weak, the elderly, some of the children, some of the women, some of the men that have been injured, decide to stay back and make camp. It is a quandary. It is a problem for you really don't know what to do. Inside your heart, you know that if you stay at the camp, you will probably lose your life. So you help them, but you carry on as well. You tell them what may happen to them if they stay there. And they know, but they will not leave their elderly. They will not leave those injured. All the while, you're so worried about these poor people. You call upon Dagaz and the gods to aid you and aid these people, for this storm that would be coming would be so bad. You make your way to the top of the hill, which was the beginning of the mountain. You realised you did not actually need to go to the mountain, for the hill was high. In the distance where your village was, you can see winds and lightning and thunder. It is terrifying. You can hear screams and crying, and you know it's the camp. You know it's the ones that stayed behind. You don't know how long you've been sitting there, freezing cold, because obviously you were still getting the rain and some of the wind, but it wasn't like what was happening in the village. You couldn't build a fire, so you prayed to the gods for light to come, for the storm to end. In the distance, you start to see a speck of light, and you know, because the skies are starting to clear from the storm, and you can see the greyness which comes before the dawn, that a new day is coming, that you made it through that night. And as the sun breaks through and daytime appears, you all get yourselves up and start to walk back to find out the damage that has been done. When you get to the place where those had made a camp, there were still people that were alive. There were still some children alive. A couple of the elderly were still okay. Sadly, some of them had perished. And they found a couple of the livestock that was still alive that had run off, and they got them, and you made your way back to the village. Yes, it was bad. Yes, the village was destroyed. But there was also fallen trees that you could build again. And so with the dawn come a new joy of life, that they had a chance to start over again. And at this point, you see the doorway appear in front of you. Dagaz is there to take you home. I have learnt so much about how to survive, but also how to see what the day will bring. A new hope, a new way of living, a beginning to something that may needed to have ended. The day brings through hope. The night owls can be disastrous, but there is always hope. There is always enlightenment. There is always much warmth from the sun, from the day. So you make your way back to where you are, guys, and you find yourself back in your rooms where you were sitting before. And when you're ready, wriggle your fingers and toes and open your eyes, for you are back in the land that you live in. And there we leave them in that village to get on with their lives. And there you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. Please make sure that you eat and drink something, for you have been path working, meditating, and you need to ground. If anything that you can get from this is, it doesn't matter what we go through in our lives, there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. There is always a silver lining in that storm cloud. There is always a new day ahead. We are promised of that. Through dawn merging into day, day merging into night, a never-ending circle and cycle of life. And when it does end and we do sleep, we start again. There's never an end. Always remember that. And there I'm going to leave it, guys. The end of the series of the runes. I hope you enjoyed the series. And if you've got anything you want to ask, please leave me a comment below. I'm always there. I will always answer you. Thank you to my subscribers. Thank you to those that are always there supporting this channel and me, wherever you are, whatever time of day, night or evening it may be. I wish you the best ever. House of Elaine.